Hi, welcome back. The last time we were talking about the static pitch modes, and I'd gotten to the last two of those static pitch modal scales that I'd like to present today. So we covered everything up through Mixolydian in the last lesson. The next modal scale to play would be from a static pitch, which we're using the note C, again, good old trusty C. The next static pitch modal scale I'd like to play is Aeolian. And that would be the 6th degree of a given key. So the thing about Aeolian that you can always recognize is that the third note that you play in this scale is the tonic note. So the notes of C Aeolian are C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, octave. And you'll notice that it's the very common minor scale. That's a natural minor scale, but the key you're actually playing in is E flat major. And so you've got C, index finger, 3rd fret A string, D, 5th fret A string, middle finger, E flat, which is the 6th note of the A string, played with my ring finger, or 3rd finger. You've got F, which is the 3rd fret of your D string, G, 5th fret of your D string, played with my middle finger. You've got this note, which is A flat, on the 6th note of the D string, and then you've got your 3rd fret of your G string, which is B flat, and then you've got your octave. And so that would be the key of E flat major that you're playing, and not just simply C minor in this particular context. And like every other static pitch modal scale that you're practicing, you can do the same thing as that you've always done with any of the other scale practices that I've presented. You can play and that is simply skipping every other note and playing thirds. Whichever way you want to play that, just to resolve the scale. But once again, listen to that information because you're playing actually in the key of E flat major as it pertains to these modal scales, the static pitch modal scales. And again, using a note and playing each static pitch scale will move the key you're actually playing in. And that's something to, once again, pay very, very close attention to. This information is really, really important as we play through music itself and we play through ideas that we learn to hear. And once again, I can't express how much discovering this practice when I was a young growing player, how much it changed me, how much more I was able to hear what was going on within the context of the music I was listening to, be it whatever, pop, R&B, rock, jazz, whatever. It just really opened up my ear, and I was really able to hear what was going on within the music just from this very simple practice away from the music itself, but again, also connecting the information I was playing to all the other information that's available on my instrument. And that was really, really important to me as I was able to, just listen more and hear more and do more with my music that I was trying to learn. The last modal scale that we're going to practice is actually the Locrian scale. And that Locrian scale it takes place a half step below the key center or the tonic. So if we're going to use a C Locrian scale, we have to take into account that that's actually D flat major. This note is D flat or C sharp, and the Locrian scale happens a half step below that tonic. So it's a D flat major scale sounds like this. But within that context, you've got the notes D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, and then C, and you've got your D flat, do to do, tonic. So those notes are, as I said, D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat. And so that's a key that you hear more than I think that we realize we hear that key. But it's a really fun key to play in. And so if we were to use the Locrian scale from the note C, you would be a half step below D flat. And the scale would look like this. And so you got C, but this E flat constitutes a minor third. The B flat constitutes a minor seventh. And so those notes are C, third fret, index finger A string, D flat, fourth fret A string with my middle finger, E flat, sixth fret, played with my pinky on the A string, F, played with my index finger on the D string. Then we have something very interesting here. G flat, played on the fourth fret of the D string with my middle finger, A, played on the sixth fret of the D string with my pinky, and then we have B flat, played on the third fret of the G string with my index finger, and then the octave of that scale. I'm just using my ring finger in this case instead of extending it to my middle finger there, because at this point the scale's finished as far as a practice mechanism. If I was going to extend that, it would have to be a little different fingering to consider. And everything everything happens in that way, of course, as you consider what's happening next. You consider which finger you're going to use as you're fretting in your fretting hand. But this is just a good practice. And again, hearing this note against a D flat, you've got a lot of really crazy sounds. You've got that sound. If I use the octave of the D flat and use the C, you've got this very clashing sound. But in the context of a key, it can be used very, very wisely. It can be used very well if you use it wisely. So that fingering for that scale. And again, you can do various different exercises with it. Or whatever. Those sorts of exercises are really fun. But understand too, as you're playing that information, it's what you're playing against. So the idea here, of course, is to not necessarily isolate or separate the modal scale fingerings that you're playing from a given context, from a given note. Because you can start the modal scale static pitch modes from any note on your fingerboard, but just know how it relates to the key you're actually playing in, of course. So that's very important to kind of consider. I used C because then again, I could just simply relate to you what keys we were actually playing in as we played those modal scales and modal arpeggios, because you should arpeggiate every scale that you're playing, with the exception of the natural minor scale, because it's simply part of the major scale. I look at all of these as part of a major scale. But some of them are really fun to get under your fingers as far as playing patterns and things of that nature. You'll hear bass lines that are based on some of this information. It's really important, again, to I suggest very strongly using a drone pitch, whether you're playing the acoustic contrabass or the electric bass guitar or acoustic bass guitar, what have you, whether you're using 4 strings or 5 strings or 6 strings or 9 strings, it really doesn't matter. These principles all apply. And whether or not you choose to extend that into 2 octave scales, in any given scale that you can play in more than 1 octave. And I do suggest that once you have the first part of the scale in 1 octave under your fingers, then it's wonderful to go explore and hear what comes next, and extend that information as long as you stay true to the idea. That you're not playing the static pitch modal scales are not major scales. Not one of them equals a major scale, because even Phrygian, which is closest, or Mixolydian, which is also close, is off by one note. In the key of Lydian, it's the raised fourth. In the key of Mixolydian, it's the minor seventh. This is just information to keep in mind as you play through this. And again, there's no race. There's no rush to get to the next thing that you have to do. These are things that we should all be practicing on a regular basis, regardless of our level of ability, that sort of thing, because this is foundational, basic base information that we should all know. And nothing wrong with that. I love practicing these fundamentals. I love doing that because I can't tell you how often I relate to either this information or melodic information. I want to encourage you guys to play as many melodies as you can think of. Really sound out melodies from whatever vocal thing that you love hearing, and touch on the various different scales that are part of that. In a future lesson, we're going to talk about pentatonic scales and how those work, and where they're well suited. Jimmy Haslip wrote a great book on pentatonic scales and how he uses them to great effect in jazz and the instrumental music that he by and large plays, as well as the information he uses as a session musician, and the exercises that he's put together using that particular scales, or those particular scales, the pentatonic scales, as it were. But once again, this information is very expansive. It can go a long way. This can take you a very long way as a player. And, having knowledge is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I want to encourage all of us to keep our knowledge under wraps as far as what we're saying, and really play it, simply play it. Music is to be played, not necessarily always spoken about outside of lessons and these sort of things, this sort of fundamental information. This is very, very nuts and bolts. If you desire to extend your ear and to be able to hear sort of around what a key is and how to use this information to really come up with really clever information, and not for the sake of being clever, but for the sake of hearing things that are clever, whether you play them or not. That to me is as entertaining as a musician and practicing musician as it is to actually perform that information. I like the subtlety of implying something with my playing or in my playing that I don't actually say. There's a bit of a sneakiness to that sort of thing that I really, really enjoy. And some of my favorite players are, some of my favorite players use this a lot. I hear them imply something without actually saying it, because of their practice and how they've applied this information to their various different styles. I have favorite players in rock, favorite players in fusion, favorite players in jazz. I have favorite acoustic, bassists and things of that nature. In a future lesson, I'd like to talk about some of my favorite guys and what they mean to me, and encourage you guys to hear some of that music. If you're interested, let me know. But otherwise, please practice this information as all the other information that I'm trying to present here, and consider it, because it's just simply nuts and bolts type playing. This is not super heady, and I'm trying to explain it in a way that allows you to see what my fingers are doing, that sort of thing. But how to maybe listen to it to encourage you and to kind of advance you as a player. Each of us need someone in their corner that's going to tell them the secrets. And these are kind of the secrets. It sounds really kind of weird, I know. But once you start to break this information out, and again, use drone notes. Please use drone notes so you can hear how interesting that sounds. But be sure to change the drone note according to the key you're actually playing in. Practice the scales forward and backward. Take your time with them. Again, it's not a race. It's not a race. Give yourself a break. Take a deep breath and enjoy being a musician. That's what this is. That's what this is. So I'm hoping that I convey that to you to some degree. And, the comments are available. Let me know how you think. Until next time, cheers.